How the RCMP managed to entice me to go to Thailand with them to find a source of heroin is something that needs to be addressed. My name is Alain Olivier, and I was victim of entrapment in 1987 after I became addicted to heroin from it up in my return from Southeastern Asia. I ended up being introduced to someone I thought would be a friend, and it ended up being a police informer, and he went on to tell the RCMP that I was running all the heroin on the West Coast when it was totally false. After passing my name and birth date into their system, a criminal record came out, and from then on, they thought that they had found the big guy, big fish that they were looking for, when in fact I was only a junkie and I didn't have any criminal record. At that point, it's simply that they mistaken me for someone else, and from then on, they organized a whole operation where I became the target number one of an operation that was called Operation Deception. And a week after they had these information between their hand that I was someone that I wasn't. In fact, they mistaken me for my twin brother who had a criminal record. RCMP members and their civil agent came on a boat I live on to stage a murder scenario to make me believe that they were member of the mobs. And it's pretty much how it all started in 1987. And from then on, there was no stop. For over a period of 18 months, they chased me all around, trying to force me to go to Thailand with them. They finally paid for my plane ticket. They even promised me 10% of the drug they would purchase over there. They also been threatening me for 18 months. So the accumulation of all that, after 18 months, I couldn't take it anymore and accepted to go over there with them in February 1989. And this is how it all ended up being a mess for them and a mess for me, because pretty much ended up subjecting me to a death sentence over there. Well, Canada is totally against the death penalty, and worse than that, it's Canadian taxpayers that had to pay for all that. And in the end, I ended up doing 8.5 years in a Thai prison, where I was subject to the death penalty. And up in my sentencing, the court allowed me to plead guilty in exchange for a 100-year sentence, which was a life sentence over there. So in the end, I ended up being sentenced to 100 years and ended up 8.5 years in Thai prison. When was the moment that I realized that I was trapped and I couldn't get out? In fact, I only found out that these guys who were representing themselves as RCMP members, I only found out in Thailand upon my arrest, and when one of them started shouting "police, police, police" in the back street in the city of Chiang Mai, where one of them actually got killed, apparently accidentally shot in the head. And this is when I realized that I had been entrapped. And before that, I had no clue that these people were RCMP members. First of all, I never believed that members of the force, Mounties, paid with Canadian taxpayers' dollar, would go as far as staging murder scenario and threatening me and buying my plane ticket, paying all my expenses to go to Thailand, when they knew that once over there I would be left over there abandoned to a system that has no regard towards human rights, and which in fact applied the death penalty for the very crime that was financed and engineered by RCMP members. So this is only on February 19, 1989 at around 9:20 when I heard the cops say, police, police, police. And this is when I realized that I have been entrapped and I was diving through a nightmare that lasted for 8.5 years. That pretty much explain it. I help people in Thai prison, and I'm gonna explain to all the viewers why I did that. In fact, that was my way to move forward. That was my way, instead to work 40 hours a week here and getting a paycheck. For me, helping people who were more destitute than I was more important than anything else, and just to see them smiling was a little bit like my paycheck. That was my reason to live at some point, because once you're incarcerated in Thai prison, there is nothing that resembles what we have here in the normal world. When you're stuck with 8,500 prisoners, serial killer, drug dealers, pedophiles, you name it, it's a crowd that where you're always exposed to dangers in a way, and exposed to misery. And at some point, I've saw so much misery around me. I tried to convince myself that I had ways to change things. I had ideas to change things, to get better living conditions to everyone, medical care if I could. So every little thing that I could do just to help a fellow inmate, whatever, if it was Thai or American or Canadian or whatever, I mean, that was important to me. This is pretty much what kept me together all the time, and just to have that sentiment, that sense of satisfaction once you help someone and you make his life a little better, you bring someone a little bit of sense of dignity through all that. These are all little things that in the end, when you add them up day after day, that it was like my receipt to just to move forward. Like I said, I needed something like that in my life, just to keep going, keep going, keep going. And I don't think if I had not done any of these things, my time would have been much harder. I could walk out of there when by the time I walked out after 8.5 years, I could see that I did change many lives over there for the better, even if they were inside a prison. So that was my motivation to help other people, basically. Thai prisons were awful, and I'm asked if there were any good moments in there. Uh, yes, there were. Yes, there were good moments, and I think every time that we ended up, me and my friends over there, my closest friend, people I considered my family inside the prison, every time that we managed to advance in our project for better living conditions, we had reasons to be happy. Whatever all the hurdles, whatever if we ended up in confinements because we wanted to do good things, there was no regret. I think the main thing is that once in prison, if you make project to help other people and you see people happy around you, it's much easier for you to be happy also, and to ensure that your environment is quiet without being pleased, but at least happy with what we have, or better, or what we had, like all the things that we did towards bettering all our living conditions, getting mosquito net, ceiling fans. These were all little things, but they were moments to cheer for because they were all little victories, and every little victories were something that we could share all together, we could laugh about, and we could be proud of. So this is basically what motivated me over there to always do things with my friends, to make life better to all of us. Actually, I live in the I live up country on the countryside, and although I have a foot in Montreal, uh, I'm up country only for one reason. I'm on the countryside because this is where I found my best time. This is where I found that I'm closest to nature, closest to everything. I mean that I care for nature and Mother Nature in general and life in general. To be countryside also allow me to do things for myself after so many years of fighting for justice. Up there, at least, I can pull up the switch and just do other things. I'm a forest ranger from since 1977, so to be in the bush, to be countryside, to have my own gardens, to have my animals also at home is these are all things that are important for me. These are the main thing actually that keep me grounded. Because without that, I would probably a mess on some occasion. Because life is not always easy with all the things that occurred in my own life at this point, and to be countryside and to be in touch with nature just gave me that, like I said, that grounding that I need to keep going and to keep going and try to stay healthy physically and mentally. And so far, so good, I guess. How would I be a different person if I hadn't been sentenced in Thailand? Uh, First of all, to be arrested in a foreign country is something in itself that is absolutely incredible. Foremost, when it's a third world country where the rule of law does not really exist as it is here. When you end up in a country like Thailand and you ended up being arrested in prison, it changed everything. Myself, upon entering Bombat prison, the first prison where I was at while in detention, pending my sentencing, I was chained. I was shackled with 10 kilos, almost 10 kilos of irons around my ankles. That was from the start, from within an hour after my arrival inside the prison. So that alone is, I would call it something that brings you to complete humility. You know, this is when I discovered the sense of humility, of to be humble, to be grateful also to life, just to be alive. That whole experience when you're incarcerated and you lose your freedom, it's an experience that stays with you for life. And perhaps even more so when you're in a country like Thailand, when you see people dying every day, whatever, if it's from disease, from killing, from overdoses, you see always misery and misery and misery. It's on and on and on. It's on the menu 24/7, 7 days a week, and all year round. And you have to get used to that, but it changes you. It changed me, actually. It changed me probably in a good way. It taught me a lot about myself. It taught me that I was much stronger than I was, that I could stand to things much bigger than I thought I could stand. So, in the end, that whole experience of being in prison, although it was awful, it allowed me to find wisdom, to find a sense to my life, to find out about me, about who I am, my strength, my weakness, because just like anyone else, I have both. And you try to deal with that when you're in prison. And once you come out of there, freedom becomes a completely different things. And today I can say honestly that freedom is not only important to me, it's everything. It's the air I breathe. It's everything I do without any constraint, and as such, yeah, prison has made me the man that I am today, and it helped me to discover who I really was and the extent of all the strength that was inside me that I was unaware of. So in the end, yeah, prison taught me a lot, and that's the bottom line. It's a lesson that will stay with me for life. To say that prison has given me, brought me wisdom, and that made me the person that I am today is a question that could be answered in many ways. But for me, in the end, prison surely did change me in many, many, many ways. And today I'm more not careful about things that I do because I'm always careful, but I use my judgment a lot. I try to see beyond whatever action I do, whatever I say. I try to look beyond that. What will be the reactions? What people will think? And I know I've been through an experience that isn't easy, and that I cannot expect people even to understand at some point, because without experiencing it, it's pretty hard to grasp the true meaning of an experience like this. But in the end, freedom to me, is now that I'm back in Canada, is something that so important. It's so, I realize the importance of freedom through all that. Even if freedom is not necessarily physical, often freedom is something that goes between your ears. Because even while I was in prison, despite all the hurdles, the walls, the guards with the machine guns and everything, I've managed, after accepting my situation, I've managed to cut myself up a little bit from everything that surrounded me. I found out that freedom, in fact, maybe physically something, but the biggest part is the mental part, what goes on between your ears. This is where freedom really happens. And to me, I could find freedoms by reading a book. I could find freedom just by at looking at a bird on a branch in a tree. All those little things were things that prior to prison I wouldn't have maybe looked at the same way as I did discover inside prison, and as I do today. Today, every little thing is important to me. And freedom is probably the most valued things that people should know, that people should consider in their lives. And yeah, prison taught me about freedom in some ways, but different ways than people may think. Yeah. What kind of meaning doing this podcast has for me personally? I think the answer is pretty simple. I think people needs to be inspired by something. I don't pretend to hold on to the truth or wisdom or anything, but I've been through so much miseries over the years. I've been through so much adversity that I made it back, that I'm just to be there after 35 years and still fighting for justice. I think speaks a lot for itself. But that resilience is something that I've discovered that I had probably much more than I thought I had. Like, but in the end, I think it's this whole adventure, this whole things in prison has brought me to discover so many different angles about me, about all the things that I can do. And I know that all these things at some point may inspire people who are stuck in different difficult situations, and that my own experience could help them to go through their own experience just by seeing that I've been through so much and I'm only a human being after all, and people are human beings, and if I could do it, they probably could. It's only a matter of hope always. It's only a matter of finding little heroes here and there to keep us moving, just like I did while I was in prison. I always found myself heroes here and there, whatever, if it was Nelson Mandela, Solicitzin, or others, James Woodcock, and people who inspired me, people who convinced me that it was possible to go pretty much every hurdles that were put in front of me through all that. And I think once people discover all this about me, about everything I've been through, that could help a number of them to go through their own problems and to conquer them and to survive adversity. And that's the way I look at it now. Matter of spirit to inspire people. I mean, it's if I could contribute to that, that would be a big, big, big victory. Because already many people have written to me and told me that I've changed my story, changed their lives. Some of them even told me that I basically saved their own life because they were thinking, doing the unthinkable and just committing suicide. And after reading my book, Good Luck Frenchie, and seeing the movie, they realized that perhaps they had more strength than they thought that they ever had, and that's why I'm doing that. It's a matter of inspiring people to believe that they can conquer pretty much their fear and survive pretty much any type of adversity.